Sigurd Kahn, Mr. Robert Petit, head of the International and Impartial and Independent Mechanism for Syria, IIIM, welcome to Al Arabiya, sir.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to start by saying that your mandate has been very clear from the moment of inception of IIIM by the United Nations General Assembly in December 2016. That is, to prepare cases to support current and future jurisdiction. You visited Syria from the 20th to the 24th of December of last year, and you formally requested permission from the new administration to send teams to work and discharge UN IIIM mandate in Syria. Did you receive a response from the new administration?
Not yet. And we need that response. We need a formal framework by which we can do criminal law work. And so that's why we require this permission and this framework. We've been waiting. We've been in contact. We've been exchanging. We're hopeful to get an answer, but time is of the essence, especially because we know that evidence is being lost as we speak.
What do you sense? Are they keen on you starting the investigation and your work to dispense your mandate in Syria, or are they delaying and dilly-dallying for other reasons?
I have no reason to believe that it is anything but simply the authorities addressing a myriad of priorities in order of importance and about processes and about developing those internal processes of a state. So I think it has a lot more to do with that than anything else.
You called on the new administration to take immediate measures to protect mass grave sites and preserve critical evidence. What was their response to your call?
Well, that call was first made by the Syrian civil society organizations and the Syrians themselves when they saw what was happening. And indeed, at the beginning, the caretaker authorities were clear that they knew that this was also important, and they took some steps to do just that, to preserve access to the sites. But we all saw the images. We all saw the people searching for answers for their loved ones that had disappeared and were not seen again, and what that has caused in terms of loss of evidence. So it was very hard at the beginning. We now know that the situation in Damascus is a bit better, more stable. Outside of Damascus, it's still very much difficult. And it's going to be, I think, it will necessitate cooperation with, obviously, the caretaker authorities, but also with other actors, such as the IIIM, to be able to really map out and stabilize the situation.
Will the Syrian new administration need expertise to help them safeguard the newly accessible documented evidence?
Indeed. You're talking about a government that for at least the last 14 years used every aspect of the state to commit mass atrocity. So there's an immense amount of evidence, and to build these cases, it takes expertise. It takes expertise, first of all, to preserve the evidence, then to analyze it, and then to build cases around it. We, the IIIM, were built for that. We were created just for this moment, and we've been doing it for 8 years. We have an incredible amount of data already, of information, of evidence, knowledge, working methods, and resources. And as I like to say, we are a quasi-prosecutorial office, a war crime office for Syria. So we can make that impact.
When you were in Syria, you said there was a small window of opportunity to secure the sites and to save integrity of the evidence. What do you exactly mean?
Evidence, to be able to rely on evidence, a court has to be able to assert that evidence is original, has not been tampered with, and is probative. It proves what it seeks to prove. In order to do that, the best case scenario is where that evidence is found by an entity that uses criminal law process to preserve that evidence in situ, where it was found, where it was created, where it was used. As soon as you start tampering with that, as soon as you start taking something out of its natural habitat, if you'd like, you may undermine its value eventually in a tribunal because you insert unknowns. Who had access? How did this document look before somebody started playing with it or moving it? And it it can have a very detrimental effect on evidence. So that's why the sooner we are there, the sooner we can assist in securing all these sites, securing that information, the better.
We noticed that the IIIM did not disclose which officials in the new government it met with or the site that you visited afterwards. We all know that transparency is very important to give us all, and especially the victims, confidence in the accountability process and its fairness. Can you comment on that?
Well, as I said, we did hold meetings with representative of the caretaker authorities of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We also met with the Prosecutor General, and we did visit the Ministry of Justice, where we found the archives of the terrorism court, and also what was left of the military court archives, both of which, but especially the military court, were used as an instrument of oppression by the regime for all these years. Those archives are there. We saw it. We were allowed to visit. They included the Caesar file. The actual files where the pictures, the Caesar pictures that were smuggled out of Syria were taken from. The actual files where the pictures were there with the death certificates, the information about the doctors, the people who had anything to do with the detention and torture and eventual death of these people. Those files were there and are still there. But they are, with the rest of it, in need to be preserved.
With Bashar al-Assad and his family staying in Russia, how will Syria or IIIM hold him accountable? Have you finalized your investigation into the Syrian former president and others very close to him?
I can say that we've certainly built a foundation of understanding in a structural investigation that does allow us to know which groups, which individuals, and to place these in case files eventually. There's a lot of work to be done. We have to be realistic. For the last 8 years, nobody thought that this moment could happen. Nobody thought that there could be this opportunity for justice for Syria. So a lot of the work that we've done is support jurisdictions, universal jurisdictions, with their own cases, which amounts to over 300 that we were able to help. But we also have the evidence for the regime and its allied crime that we could certainly build into cases. And this is what the IIIM could do and contribute perhaps the most, is to hold those most responsible to account in the criminal proceedings. That's the type of work that we know how to do.
In June 2023, the United Nations General Assembly also established an independent institution for the missing persons in Syria to clarify the fate of and the whereabouts of more than 130,000 people missing as a result of the conflict. While in Syria, you met with families of some of the missing persons. Do you think that IIIM will be able to shed some light on the fate of their missing loved ones?
We certainly can. And I have to say that the families of those who disappeared, that trauma, that hurt, that wound never heals until there is a truth about what happened to their loved one. And it's a terrible, terrible situation. And as you said, over 130,000 of these families, certainly. Yes, we can, and we have been. We've been working with the IIMP, the Institution for Missing Person. They have a separate mandate that is focused solely on the fate of the missing. We have a mandate that is solely focused on accountability, but during the course of accountability, gathering that evidence, building these case files. We've, of course, have come across a lot of evidence, certainly a certain amount of evidence that will be helpful to the IIMP. And for example, 2 days before the regime fell, we published a report on detention centers, over 100 detention centers, which had most of them a grave attached to it. Well, that information certainly can be shared and is now, of course, in the public, but that type of information, we can certainly help with the IIMP, and we have been coordinating with them very closely.
There's those who say justice delayed is justice denied. What is the time frame that you will be ready to submit your evidence to an appropriate court?
a lot of that would depend on what eventually Syrians decide that they want for justice, the form that it's going to take. I think there is a lot of discussions that have to be held inclusively to decide what that's going to look like. Is it just national courts? Is it a hybrid tribunal? Is it an international court? Is it some kind of truth and reconciliation commission? When we have a clearer answer, well, of course, as I said, we were created for this. We were created to contribute to competent jurisdictions proceedings in criminal proceedings. So when that becomes clear, we are ready and willing and able to assist with that.
Considering the size of these trials, if they happen, that might involve thousands of perpetrators of crimes and the whole state apparatus dedicated to the commission of mass atrocities in the previous regime. It is a big challenge for any judicial system. Don't you agree?
Very much so. And I've worked in a lot of post-conflict settings doing this type of work. There's no one best solution. There's no cookie cutter, application. Every society must decide what they want. As I said, what does justice mean and look like for them and for the purposes that they want it to serve. I believe it will, again, encompass different modes of different mechanisms. You can try, obviously, thousands of people. The Rwandans tried 1.2 million suspects in there over a decade, I think, in their specific process. You can try that model, or you can target those most responsible, the architects of all these crimes, and then decide for other measures or for thus criminalizing certain conducts, certain crimes, more iconic crimes. There will be choices that will need to be made. And as I said, I'm hoping that this will be an inclusive process where, if no consensus, at least some decisions are made based on that broadest possible agreement about what justice must look like for Syria.
The IIIM is not a court. It collects evidence from multiple sources to support accountability proceedings. What court or entity would the IIIM hand its evidence to, and how is this decided?
Well, we will continue to work, obviously, with competent jurisdictions that have been doing these cases for years now. And as I said, over 230 specific investigations and prosecutions that we've been able to support. These jurisdictions, these countries have been prosecuting individuals, perpetrators of crimes in Syria. We will continue to support those jurisdictions. At the same time, when the decisions are made by Syrians about what this process will look like, we will be able to support it as well. But I think, as I said, it needs to be a well-thought process, which we will certainly be happy to contribute our experiences and our thoughts on different aspects of this very complex issue.
Do you see a role for the ICC?
I think, as I said, there's a role for every kind of mechanism depending on what Syrians want. The ICC is, of course, a court that was created for specific situations. It doesn't have jurisdiction for the moment in Syria. It could have jurisdiction eventually. It is also focused on the highest level of responsibility, but in a very small and limited number of individuals and cases. But it could certainly have a role to play. But I think, as I said, the Syrians must consider all the different types of mechanism, all the different types of bodies that could help bring and help define that justice.
Time's caught up with us. I'd like to ask you a last question. Do you believe that an overwhelming majority of Syrians' victims will be represented in the pursuit of justice and full accountability?
Victims never forget. They always want some form of recognition for their victimization, some form of accountability, some form of justice. It can take many different ways, and it can take decades. Cambodia was 40 years before there was some justice for the victims of the Khmer Rouge. So it can take a long time, but victims are very resilient, and Syrians are among the most resilient, engaged, and determined people that I've worked with, and I firmly believe that there will be accountability.
Robert Petit, head of the International, Impartial, and Independent Mechanism for Syria, IIIM, We thank you for this exclusive, and we thank you for your insight, and we wish you the very, very best of luck, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.